going to be needing this. We are going to be needing this. Cheers. Yum, 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 yum. I went to see Napoleon. And yes, it was a bloodbath. It was a bloodbath because I came in with 3 people. And 2 people, one sitting over there, walked out within half an hour.
20 minutes. Like, I'm done. I'm good. I'm not sitting here for another 2 hours.
Is that the end of the review? I think that's roughly the end of the review, isn't it? No, actually, I did stay. But our third person also walked out. Then I will explain why the Peanut Gallery walked out, and I will explain why our third person walked out, and I will tell you what happened.
We were right.
What happened when I stayed? I will also tell you that.
Oh my god.
The film is about Napoleon. It's supposed to be about Napoleon, and it's been advertised in April of this year. This is still 23, and by the time you see it, it won't be 23. Okay, it was advertised in April. On big trailer advertising, but it was like 3 minutes of spoilers for it, and I sort of went, okay, it's historical, I want to go. When is it going to be here? October. You're advertising something in April that comes out in October? Are you nuts? Okay, how am I going to remember that? So by the time November runs around and people say, okay, October became November because that's how stuff goes. If you're going to advertise that fast in advance, then it's gonna not get there at the time that you... Anyway, the hype for it and the lead up time to it has made a certain expectation with me, but also Peanut Gallery and our third. There is some sort of expectation there, like this is gonna be...
Epic?
Well, one of the three movies of the year. Kind of epic, yes.
Number 1, Barbie.
Barbie, Oppenheimer, this movie. So fair enough. Let's go. So we went, and the movie opens at the Revolution, which was a choice that I thought they were going to make. I was hoping they were going to start a little sooner, because if it's about Napoleon, should be little Napoleon goes to school first. Would be nice.
I really would have liked to see it.
But okay, they're going straight for the Revolution. And then we get... how to put this delicately? One of the highlights of the movies happens in the first 5 minutes. And... Because it opens on the place of executions. So that's not very nice. But I hear French singing. I'm going... Oh, wow, this sounds good. And I was thinking, this sounds really good. Those nice rolling R's. And then when I looked it up later, yeah, that sounds good. Nice rolling R's. That's bloody Edith Piaf there singing. And I looked it up. She's singing a song called, let me check my paper. Ça ira. From a French movie from 1953, because she didn't last very long, unfortunately. I'll look her up. 1953, she played the Marianne in a French movie about the Revolution. And the song, Ça ira, is not only an Edith Piaf song, but an actual song from 1790. So she's singing in a perfect French, because Edith Piaf, a completely correct song. And so I think it sounded really good. And like I said, I didn't know it at the time, but it sounded really authentic. Yeah, this is good. And then comes on the screen comes Napoleon is walking around the place, and Marie Antoinette is getting to come to her execution. And I was going, Napoleon was not there when either the king or the queen was executed. I'm pretty sure of that. So, okay. Film shorthand is... the thing is, then he has to react to the scene because he was there. I'm sure he reacted to the news in the newspaper, but he was not there. He was completely somewhere else. So, okay, shorthand. Fine. Then we get a little bit of good thing. Marie Antoinette's hairdo is a mess because she's being dragged off to get... But you can see that her hair is actually cut in 2 layers. She has a front bit which is frizzy because it was to be curled, and there's a back bit which is long. That's actually correct, because that's how that hairdo was. If you take it apart, the hairdo with that she was spouting there was like that. So, nice. However, and that is another thing that people who know a little bit about history know. Marie Antoinette's hair was completely cut when she went to the guillotine. So she would have been unrecognizable as... That was was not really the point, but it's also kind of the point. They did it, the cutting they did for convenience because it made the business go faster, and they wanted to do a lot of business. So, yeah, it's ghastly. But there are... illustrations of the time, which is on the wiki. I'm sure it's on the wiki, of her wearing a cap on her head because her hair had been cut because she was about to get executed. So wrong, but no. And these little details are setting the tone for this entire movie. They're getting some things right, but they're in the wrong places. Because now pretty soon after we meet Josephine, and she has the hair short. And again, I looked this up. You only had your hair short if you're about to be executed, like the next day. So she would either be dead or she have a head of hair. There was a movement of that becoming a fashion, but that wasn't until 5 years later. It took a while to become fashion. It was not because she had been in prison. Her husband was executed, but she was not, and the children were not. Also because Robespierre fell before they got that far. But as I couldn't find any trace of where her hair was cut. That didn't happen. It just didn't happen. So that's another one that's wrong. And then pretty soon, this is actually when the Peanut Gallery already walked out, and when the relationship between Josephine and Napoleon, which is historically not without troubles, but he was certainly very much in love with her, and she learned to love him, and they worked it out. What they showed on the screen was so toxic. Why? So I'm glad Peanut Gallery missed that. She would not have enjoyed it. So she was right to walk out. The reason our third person walked out, and I talked about later to them about it, and I agree, is... let's do this with a backhanded compliment. Why not? Compliment to the Dutch subtitler, because in the Netherlands we have Dutch subtitlers. The Dutch I don't read the Dutch subtitling because English I understand perfectly.
I read them, even though I understand it.
But your eye catches them, but that's not my thing. And sometimes I just catch and see, oh, that sort of matches what they're saying, and then I move on. And now I was seeing something in the subtitling. Some political guy had an inane line, and somebody else had an inane line. And I was reading the subtitling, and I was going, that's That's what they meant. What they should have been saying is in the subtitling. It's not in the text. It's in the subtitling. The subtitler, who of course knows his history because it's subtitlers in the Netherlands are going to be multilingual. He's also going to have been doing French because a subtitler in the Netherlands who will do the Napoleon movie is the one that also does French, just in case we run into any French. And in German, yeah, you can do that. So they know their history, they know their French, they know it all. So this subtitler added in what was missing from the text, showing plainly the text writer needs his ass kicked. I'm sorry. It was so bad. And this is why the third person walked out on us. The text doesn't give you anything. A thing was that there's no introduction of characters at all. You get Napoleon is kind of obvious, but Marie Antoinette, you sort of have to know that. Josephine, I think they actually do say her name, but there is a brother of Napoleon following him around in the first part, and I think it's Joseph, but they never say. And later on it's Julien, because he had a couple of them, and so they're not interchangeable, but they're interchangeable, if you know what I mean. But it's nice to know which one it is. And all these French political guys, is that guy Barras or Talleyrand, and which are the admirals and stuff like that. And very rarely, nobody was introduced. Almost nobody was introduced.
Well, I really wanted nameplates. I wanted them to have a little nameplate around their necks.
Yes, just say here,
Here on screen, give me a close-up and then just literally plaster it on the screen. This is Admiral so-and-so.
And he is important because so-and-so.
Yeah.
Barras, a member of the Directoire, the leader of the Directoire. I would have liked to know that at that particular point, because I had to infer it afterwards. Oh, this is probably, it's too early for Talleyrand, I'd forgotten about Barras. There are so many people, and I know quite a bit about this bit of history, and still there are so many people. So the fact that you don't do any introduction of characters, you have lousy text. Then you have Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon, and I'm not going to throw this on him because I think this is a director issue. But I think the director told him, you have to look. And that's what Joaquin did.
Yeah, he
did
it.
He did it every time he had to do an impressionable look thingy, he was very good. It's just the rest he was lousy at, and I think that's a director's issue. That is not. I'm going to assume I haven't seen him in anything else, so I don't know. But I don't think it's him. I think it's a director issue, and so you have this combined with the fact that Napoleon himself is not that sympathetic a character. As such, I mean, he could, if you write him well, he could be very interesting, but sympathetic maybe not.
No, well, he's a dictator who took 3 million French soldiers
to
get killed. How sympathetic is that?
Yeah, but you can do more with that's my biggest complaint about this movie, and a takeaway because I have a whole is that. Ridley Scott didn't take any direction with this movie. There was a lot of things he could have done. He could have made him very sympathetic. He could have made him very unsympathetic. He kind of did. He just made him toxic, which is not interesting. Maybe he thought that was interesting. I don't know. Make him a toxic relationship between him and Josephine. But the thing is, I had to explain it to her third to what my problem with the movie was, and I had to think about it real hard. I think every event and scene in this movie is filmed at the same intensity. It's all weighted the same. And that's not how movies work. That's how documentaries may work, but not movies. Because in movie you need a rest moment and an action moment and then a sensitive moment and then maybe a turnaround moment. You may need different moments. And this movie doesn't do that. It just gives you a bunch of picture postcards. Moving picture postcards. This is a very pretty movie. I mean, not the first 30 minutes that the Peanut Gallery and our third watched, because that was all revolution and it was all grey and it wasn't fun. But once they left that, went to Egypt and went places, it got visually better. So it's very pretty. But that's not a movie, is it?
Well, one of the things that I really liked, I mean, considering I only saw 20 minutes, was the attack
Toulon.
In Toulon, that where they and I'm thinking, because we get absolutely no dialogue. There were like 3 lines up till that point, I think, and then Napoleon, he is directing it. He is a captain of, or he's not a high rank yet, and he is sweating bullets. And that part, I'm like, okay, so we're staying with Napoleon. We're showing he's supposed to be at least 20 years younger than his actor, clearly. And then I'll take it. I'm running with it. And then he is really worried about whether he can do this. Now that was interesting. So to me, if they'd said, we're going to do Napoleon's battles and we're going to see what kind of tactician he is, that would have been interesting.
Yep, and I looked up some of these battles. They're like, 4 or 5 big battles. Toulon is not a big one. It's an early one, but not a big one. I hated a lot of battles. And every time you look up Napoleon in any of his battles, it's an interesting, on the wiki, just wiki information. It's interesting. He could, Ridley Scott could have taken any of the major battles, and we have like Austerlitz, Leipzig, Borodino, and Waterloo as options to pick, and then Toulon as a starter. But there were lots of different battles. Every single one has something interesting about it, and I did make a list of what I think what the director could have done and what he should have done. What he could have done, and what I would have done if I was given the assignment of do something with Napoleon and I had 200 million to spend, because this jalopy cost 200 million. I would probably pick Borodino. Because I looked them up and he lost at Waterloo. It's a big battle, but there's been a lot about Waterloo in different movies. So Austerlitz is a little early. Leipzig I have to look up again. Was also a big one. But Borodino is interesting because it is one of the few that actually ended in a draw. Very interesting. So how did that happen? Also, it is the biggest land battle, single moment land battle ever in the greater European area. Ever. 250,000 people were on the battlefield throwing stuff at each other. I mean, seriously, this is, oh my God, if you want to do a big thing. So what I would have done, and I don't like I'm not a fan of non-linear stuff, but this is the moment where you should do non-linear stuff. Just film Borodino, have Joaquin Phoenix look worried and look at plans, and because he can do that really well, and then put all the rest of the story in flashbacks, in bits and pieces, and then you can actually forgo doing the story completely, and you can go with bits and pieces, because then you can do anything you want to miss. You just do one little flash of it and then, oh yeah, we'll call it good and move on. And then you can actually spend as much time on the things that you want to spend the time on. Even if you want to do toxic relationship with I don't know why you would want to, but okay, if you want to. But you can also skip things, and I think that's the movie has problems skipping things. He should they did skip his youth, and I think that was a mistake. But you could have done it in like 2 flashes. Show that he was one of too many children in a family that was too affluent to be poor, but not affluent enough to take part in the affluent people. You know, that doesn't take that long. The French hated this movie, and I agree with them, because the Josephine and Napoleon are legendary and it's toxic. Then it is filmed in Lincoln Cathedral for Notre Dame Cathedral. It's not, and no Frenchman is gonna like that. I'm sorry, no. They're gonna no.
It's just horrible.
I mean, no disrespect to Lincoln Cathedral. It's a fine cathedral. It's just not Notre Dame, is it? It's just not. I'm sorry.
Well, it probably suggests that he requested and was denied access to
maybe
the Notre Dame.
I think what he thinks. I've seen an interview with Ridley Scott about how he feels about historical stuff, because doing this mixing and matching with historical events, people, we now know that's going to be wrong. If Marie Antoinette comes in with a head of hair at her execution, we know it's wrong. I didn't even have to look that up. I already knew it was wrong. I knew Napoleon wasn't there. And it's so easy to look up. And I think in 2023 and going forward, but in the 2020s, you cannot make an historical movie about a historical person without sticking as much to the historical facts as you bloody well can. Because you're going to get called out for it in no time on YouTube. There's going to be a plethora of videos on showing how this is wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And what are you making a movie for? If you're making something like Gladiator, because that's also Ridley Scott. Gladiator is set in historical events, but the character himself is not historical. He's a figment of imagination. And I have to re-see Gladiator again, but it was in gross lines. It was kind of okayish. We don't know enough about that. Okay. And this is not a review about Gladiator. This is not a review about Gladiator. This is.
Bloodbath.
Don't worry, it's just the blood, not the Mary. Or the Marie Antoinette. When we were seeing Napoleon, of course, afterwards, I did speak to the Peanut Gallery too afterwards, and we both said, why didn't they do something like Désirée? And the Désirée is a film after a book, and the lady who picked the character, who is Désirée Clary, was a historical character. And she wrote an autobiography about her, but it's about a lot of her time, which is Napoleon. And that's a smart way of telling the story, because Napoleon himself is not sympathetic. So you want to look at him because he's part of the time, but you don't want to do him. And that's the film doesn't realize that in some way, that in Gladiator, it's about the person next to the creep. And here, it's about the creep. And it doesn't work. If he had chosen to do the film about Josephine, you would have been able to do pretty much exactly what we saw here, because Josephine was so tightly knit with Napoleon. His fortunes were her fortunes, because that's how women work in earlier times. You're stuck with men, and his rising star is her rising star, and so she would get all the information, and it would have been a way more interesting story. She's a character you can make sympathetic much easier. and you can put her in a place where she can then look at Napoleon and react to Napoleon. And because that's another thing this movie doesn't do, because Napoleon, there is no emotion. There's a toxic relationship between him and Josephine, of which we are completely unsure of why. And every event is shorthanded in a film. I mean, Ridley Scott has been making films for 50 years. He knows how to do film shorthand. The thing is, you can't do film shorthand on history. There is a scene, it's pretty soon after Josephine and Napoleon have met. Josephine's star is down. Her husband has just been beheaded for... It was something he did, but also because they are all minor nobles, so they're all in danger of the revolution. And in the film, Napoleon is some sort of under commander, and the Eugène, the son of Josephine, little son, he's like maybe 10 years old, comes to Commander Napoleon to ask for the sword, the ceremonial sword that his father used to have, which was confiscated and put in storage somewhere. Can I have it back, please? And I think what they're trying to do, because I did read Josephine's wiki page, is he's trying to shorthand in, because Napoleon does retrieve the sword and give it back to the boy, and it actually comes to the house to give it back, and Josephine is there. The shorthand, I think he thinks is, the actual events are that Josephine herself came from a very poor family, but with name. She was married off to the Beauharnais. He had some money. She didn't love him, had 2 children with him, because that's how that goes. Then he, in the revolution, gets executed, and his monies are confiscated. Her monies are confiscated because his and hers are the same. She doesn't have any money. Whatever is hers, which she didn't have, is his. So his money is confiscated, and she petitioned to the revolution after Robespierre's fall. She petitioned to get it back. It took a while, and Napoleon may have helped in that endeavor. But so the sword is shorthand for her actual money. But the film doesn't say it. And in the Toulon bit, which was a good bit as such, if you had read the wiki, where the Toulon attack, that is one of the first ones, if you read the wiki, it will tell you this. Napoleon was, because he was a minor noble and not that popular, and also from Corsica, but he had a good education in military. He was given a command, but the army, the bit of army he was given was pretty shite. So he was giving bad men, which he had to go to Toulon, which was at the time was actually, again, more a little bit of subterfuge on the part of the movie. Toulon was actually taken by royalists, French royalists, and they had asked the English to come. So there was French royalists and English. The film just makes it look like they were just English. They are royalists. It was the revolutionaries against the royalists and the English. The outcome is pretty much the same, because it ends up in a night battle. And the film doesn't tell you. I had to actually nudge my others and say, this is a night battle. That's unusual, because that's unusual, but the film doesn't tell you. Night battles, you didn't do that. What made Napoleon in history interesting and important is that he in a few short years took medieval warfare and made it modern warfare by doing like night battles. And a second thing he did at Toulon, which is also interesting, because his men were garbage, but he took a battalion of small cannon. And he said, drop everything else, take the cannon. And he basically took too long with these little cannons. Because he was thinking on his feet and he was adapting in a way that was unusual and new. And this is another way you could do this movie. As the time progresses, and the things like newspapers and information is spreading around Europe, and other people hear about how Napoleon does things, other generals are starting to do the same thing. He starts to lose at Borodino, or Borodino was a draw, but he was about to lose at Borodino. And he lost at Waterloo because Wellington and Kutuzov in Russia, in Borodino, and Wellington in Waterloo were starting to do his own tactics back at him. So it came full circle. You could make a lovely movie about that.
Yes.
Where is it?
Yeah,
give me.
Give me the Napoleon movie that goes all about his tactics. Him as a general, and then him as an emperor. I assume they went that far.
And Borodino, but then is he already an emperor.
And that, I think, would have been a much better... If you're saying we're doing Napoleon, we're not doing Napoleon the life of, we're doing Napoleon as he was going through these battles. The logical thing is to go for the tactics, for how does it all work. Yep. And then you will have...
And you can take any one of these battles, any one of them. Austerlitz, Leipzig, Borodino, Waterloo, and even some of the... Anything for which you say, I want to put that as the nexus of my movie, and go. And the film skills of Ridley Scott are good enough. Joaquin Phoenix in his Lonesome is not able to carry it. I have to say that straight up. He's not Russell Crowe. He's not Adam Driver in the Gucci movie. It was Adam Driver and Al Pacino. And he's not Marlon Brando. He's just Joaquin Phoenix, and he needs a little help. Because all these other actors, they can do it without help, and he does help.
Well, my wonder was, because I didn't finish watching the movie, is like, was he actually told to? Well, we don't know what he was told, but can we conjecture that he was told, here is the Désirée movie, here is Marlon Brando doing Napoleon, give me something like that. Because you can't tell a person to be Marlon Brando.
Every American actor wants to be a Marlon Brando. And in this case, you have the competition straight up, because Marlon Brando did play Napoleon in the Désirée film.
So it's worse.
And yes, it is worse. No, I don't think he's trying to be. I don't think he's actively trying to be Brando, but Ridley Scott is putting him in the position of figure it out, and not every actor can do that. I mean, I think maybe Ridley Scott has been spoiled with the Gucci movie, because the Gucci movie had like Adam Driver, Lady Gaga, Al Pacino, and Jeremy Irons, and all of those people can do it without help. They have been in especially Jeremy Irons has been in so much garbage. He knows how to make garbage into good stuff without any help from the director. If help is not available, I mean, I would prefer if there was help, but sometimes it's not available. So I think Ridley Scott is letting this the entire thing down, and combined with the choice of, let's not have any sort of direction in the movie, just make scenes. Because this, if you gave me this movie and said it's a docudrama, all it needs is interviews with Wellington and some of these people, or maybe some bunch of historians, just interspersed between each scene an expert in history who explains what's going on and adds some more and make the whole thing like 6 hours. I think the thing itself is like 2.5, nearly 3 hours. Add another 3.5 hours worth of interviews with professors from Lincoln University. Preferably from the Sorbonne, but and put them in, and then you say, yeah, it's great docudrama stuff, but it's not a movie. It's not a movie. It is not good enough. I was so upset. I was so and I agree with Peanut Gallery and our third that they walked out. I'm not kind of walking outy type, but I understand why they did, and went and had some tea because, or I would make a film about Borodino. I would love to see a film about Borodino, or Waterloo, or Austerlitz, or Leipzig. And there were a lot of... I was just thinking of I see if I can find a picture of it, but I can't find every picture, but I'll try. Of the... it's just after... just after the Peanut Gallery had walked out, the Egypt stuff happens, and... to shorthand, it's just shorthand. The shorthand that in, they have a shot of Napoleon opening a sarcophagus and looking at a mummy and coming face to face with the mummy. It was an interesting, people did do stuff with mummies that they shouldn't have been doing, which we now know they shouldn't have been doing. But then he does something that we absolutely know did not happen. He takes a pot shot at the pyramid and shoots off the top. We know. So more shorthand stuff. What they're trying to show is that he went there and he did stuff, and so you're making a postcard out of it, like an illustration that you can then put on a Wikipedia page. But I'm not leaving a Wikipedia page. I want to watch a movie. Crying in my blood here. Yeah. And a complaint I have about this movie and about the Gucci movie, there's a couple of complaints that the Gucci movie has and this has, is that there is, because both things are about actual events, that there are events on the wiki that should be in here, but there aren't. There was an assassination attempt on Napoleon and Josephine. Several, I mean like 20 odd, but one that came pretty close. And it's all missing. So what is this movie about? It is a bunch of scenes where he goes to different places and does some battles. And he has a toxic relationship with Josephine. And the politics... This should be all about politics. Where are my politics? Yeah, a bunch of guys that don't get names. And then they are dismissed almost immediately. And we go to the next thing.
So you don't find out why he's going to the next battle.
Yes, you don't find out. Basically, yeah, that's another take you could do on this story, on this history, is that the moment I started looking into it, because somewhat peripherally aware, but is that except for Egypt and Russia, almost all, and I'll have to put a caveat in there because I have to look it up, but pretty much every other major attack on France is from outside. They attacked France. And then you ask, why? And then you have to explain why, but film doesn't even go anywhere near there. There is an explanation for it. Explanation is that in a late medieval Renaissance world where everybody has a king, all of a sudden one country says, ha, king, nobility, and that scares the other kingdoms. So they are in high anxiety, and then Napoleon grabs power towards himself, and then they are in a real high anxiety. So they almost immediately attack him and the country, France, of course. And so he's on the defensive. He goes actively on the defensive. He does go out to the other places to find them. But yeah, and film doesn't tell you that. The 2 times that he did his own sojourn, which was Egypt and Russia, both ended pretty badly. Because Egypt also ended pretty badly. It was earlier, but yes. But Russia ended absolutely disastrously. So the background of all these things, which are absolutely known, almost everything is known. So you fudge all the history, you make all the interesting history disappear. You put you make your main character. You pick the person.
I don't think it's picking. I think this actor could have done.
No,
whatever.
I mean Napoleon. Picking Napoleon as your main person.
Yeah.
Because there is, apart from Desiree, which is, we will
talk about Desiree.
And I will talk about something that we otherwise may not talk about, is that there are a lot of people in that time period that are very interesting, and a lot of them have quite good books attached. I don't understand why they're not going from a book at all. I think they're just, I don't know where they're going from. There is a wonderful autobiography of a chap called Joseph Fouché, who was the chief of police first he was actually in the Directoire, and then he was under Napoleon, he was chief of police. And he himself, the man in 18 blah, wrote his own biography. So we know, he knows. I mean, from the horse's mouth is from the horse's mouth, you know. He wrote an autobiography, and there was a choice Dutch radio play out of it. It's a book. The autobiography. A German guy, wrote a lovely novelization of it, consolidating the story into a proper story. Dutch persons made a lovely radio play from it, which is how I know it, and it would make a very interesting film. A nice 3-hour movie of Fouché, who's standing in the entire bit of history that they're covering in this, even earlier, because he actually starts a little earlier, all the way to the end of Napoleon. And you could do all of that again, and now you could do it from somebody who's more interesting and nobody has ever heard of. Or pick Josephine, or pick anybody else but Napoleon himself. Because he's boring. This is boring. This is the worst thing you could do, is bore your audience.
Oh God, yes. That's the worst thing. You can drink your blood to that. I have a conjecture question.
I'm out.
So, yeah. We're all out of blood.
All out of blood.
Right. So the conjecture question is, do the older directors with like a mega oeuvre, body of work, are they looking for something that they could still do that doesn't have the required amount of diversity in it, that they have never been part of, they will never be part of, and they are a little scared to be part of because they know that they're going to mess it up and they can't do it. So one of the things that I feel about putting a Napoleon movie on, as in we're doing Napoleon, and then not starting with him as a kid and saying, okay, this is a dude. This dude went through stages and that's how he got here. That's clearly not what this movie was doing. So if you don't take him as a person like the boy next door could be, and therefore, but so is this like the older man's director, the older director, male, cis, blah-de-blah, white? I don't know if Ridley Scott is white. I am just supposing he is. And just saying, let's just talk about Napoleon in that case, because at least I can do that. Now, my problem with that, I make this worse, is that he is still doing diversity because he is an American. And
yep, that's what I was gonna.
Napoleon is a French dude.
I was gonna say that.
I mean, what? This is not the right choice, and I think he should have gone with like George Washington or any of those guys and say, let's take an old dude from history.
The problem, let me say, when I heard in April we're going to do Napoleon, I was going, why are Americans doing Napoleon? Because the French need to be doing Napoleon now, because diversity indeed, or not diversity, but own voices, and this is actually pretty close to cultural appropriation. In fact, this is straight up cultural appropriation what he's doing here. But the reason that he can't do Washington, because I'm sure he would want to, is because there are so many, all these people from that era in the States were slavers. All of them. Every single one. Slave owners.
Yeah.
And so you cannot right now show that. So you go to Napoleon, but then you go piss off the French, because the French say, hey, c'est à nous, le Napoleon. and not on you. And just putting in Edith Piaf is not enough. Because it has to be correct. It has to be, the locations have to be, you have to be more correct than this. Because there's a lot of it. I was looking at one scene, one of those postcard scenes, because there's so long. Napoleon walks into a palace and it's 1810-ish. And I'm seeing, and it's obviously a Lincoln. It's supposed to be Malmaison, but it's a Lincoln. It's a manor house in beautiful manor house in Lincoln, but it's supposed to be Malmaison, which was the location where I think it was supposed to be. It's 1810. He walks in, and there's people standing to the side, and people standing, and I'm going, that's 1830s fashion they're wearing. They're wearing off-the-rack 1830 stuff because they're probably out of 1810. Because it's just it's just film shorthand for this and film shorthand for that, and you cannot film shorthand your own entire movie. It doesn't work. We need some meat and potatoes with our fluff.
So who is this movie made for?
I have no idea. It wasn't.
Audience?
I have no idea.
The French won't want to see it. Us living close to France, we're too embedded in the history.
Anybody who's interested in history is gonna poke holes in it in no time flat. Yeah. And there's a lot of people who are, especially people who are also in American history, because yes, Napoleon world history, also famous commander. They know a lot about these battles, and they will poke holes in it like left, right, and center. So. I'm sorry if he took my money.
Can we have our money back?
Can I have my money back, please? And my blood. I'll have more blood. What?
Box office.
Did it do well?
So far, I mean, we're 1 month in or so, but they did not make their money back yet.
I think they will make their money back because it is an Apple. Apple Flix, Apple something,
TV film thing, yeah.
And it means that it will go on the streaming sites and as wallpaper or as a teaching tool to add to Wikipedia. Sure, Yes.
For
It's beautiful,
for
but
school history class.
yeah, but then you'd have to stop. Well, you'd have to cut out the toxicity. Thank you very much, and you'd have to stop the film every 5 minutes and call up the Wikipedia page and do what it was supposed to be doing. Still not a movie, but very pretty. The fact that something is very pretty doesn't mean it's a movie. The fact that it actually has time spent in you know, it's not a movie. It doesn't make it a movie.
So I really would have liked to have seen a series of battles in that case, and then have them talk about why they're doing what, pour over the battle plan,
Yes.
like we see in those. We even see it in Shakespeare doing Julius Caesar. Is they're actually standing there pouring over the battle plan and discussing why they can't attack from this side, they have to attack from that side, and they need the help from
I would
the
have
other legion.
loved to see that in this movie.
And then you have
None of it.
some heads together. Please give them nameplates. If you can't do that, then at least we have some heads together, and they are telling us, like, this is why it's important, and this is why it's difficult, and this is what we're going to do, and the odds are against us. Now you have something to put your teeth into as a viewer.
Yeah, and give your actors a chance. Give your actors a chance to. And then they can't do it all by themselves. I mean, the Gucci movie did it. The more I look at the Gucci movie, which is his previous project, is that every like the 4 major actors in that, they can do it on their own. They give them lines and they will produce like Peter Ustinov, like Brando, and you know. Like Peter Ustinov. Peter Ustinov, you could stick in anywhere and give him the lines. He'll think about it and he'll do a good delivery. But that's unusual. And
well, maybe he over-directed Joaquin.
Maybe,
Phoenix.
or maybe yes.
You are the titular character, therefore you must do everything exactly as I
And
say. And you can stifle an actor as well.
And the thing about the Gucci movie is that it was about characters that have that have existed until 1990, and there is video of these characters. So Adam Driver can take the video, take it to his trailer, and work it out, and just look like that guy, because that's what he's good at. Joaquin Phoenix has a bunch of paintings, stately portrait painting. He does those stately portrait paintings so well. But that's not a movie. That's a stately portrait painting. You know, you have to progress beyond that, and that's what the director has to help. If the actor has nothing to go on, then the director has to help him, or get him a coach to help.
Yeah, or the other way around, is the director has to let him.
If that's
Hands off.
Yeah, if that's helpful, but it's not always helpful for all actors. One thing that I have to say, and I think it's also a question of training and stuff like that, is that Joaquin Phoenix playing, who's very American, playing a Frenchman, the moment he opens his mouth, the illusion is fractured, and it's not helpful. And then especially after Edith Piaf, but also in conjunction with the fact that the text that he has to deliver is also not very wonderful. He has no chance. This is a no chance saloon. This is seriously no chance saloon. And I really wanted to like it. I love a good history flick, but this is not a good history flick. This is not good. Not history, and not a flick. So.
Recommendation?
No. Pay for the $2 on Apple TV, but no more than that. That's not worth the $14.50 I paid for it. I did write that down on my second page. Allons enfants de la patrie, le jour de gloire est arrivé. Contre nous de la tyrannie, L'Étendant San... Oh, yeah. It's the first bit of the Marseillaise, of the French national anthem. And...
Did they play it?
I don't think so, but the spirit of it, which the text is, "Come on, children of the land, the day of glory has arrived. Us against tyranny," and then it goes on. You know, I would have liked to see that if they'd done that, any bit of that. You know.
I have another thing. I don't know. Yes. So Napoleon.
Yes.
He was as much of a dictator, and he went over like how I say, he didn't care that, you know, hundreds and thousands of soldiers were killed in his
3
name.
million.
3 million. We gave you 3 million Frenchmen, and
Yeah, and that's just the Frenchmen that
just
died.
The French guys. But anyway, so, and I'm sure there's other statistics. So he's not a good guy. I mean, but his politics.
He's interesting.
Yeah, I could see Ridley Scott being interested, being fascinated by this guy, but his politics would have been very interesting to see, which they tip on a little in Désiré, but not enough. But if you actually do something about Napoleon and you show what he was about during that time period, I would like to see why. What was his philosophy? Because he had somewhat of a social reconstruction philosophy, as did the entire revolution. But he would have been the next stage if he hadn't gone nutso.
Interesting thing about Napoleon is, and they should have done that in the movie, that's why I wanted them to do Little Napoleon, is to show that he is low nobility, putting him in an interesting problem, and later with the revolution in another completely different problem on how to keep his head kind of problem. But his status got him enough education to be to become a good military man. He read a lot of Julius Caesar, the Bello Gallico. Bello Gallico.
De Bello Gallico. Yeah.
The Bello Gallico. He would have read everything. He basically, and that's the wiki gets you the information that you need. One of the things that little Napoleon, who was in grade school, sort of a pre-military grade school and then a military high school, because he was so poor, he was ostracized in his own peer group because they were all nobles, but he was a poor noble. And when he got some money, he spent it all on books. He should have spent it on better clothing, but he didn't. He spent it all on books. That should give you some information about him. This is important information. So he was very much into learning, which was a thing of the day, and Fouché was the same. He had a similar idea, and even Désirée was pushed in that direction. She was not interested, but it was an offer for her because that is the modern thing for their day. And so he was a modern kid and modern, and he went to military school, but he was not ever going to get anywhere because he was so low in rank. And then the revolution happened, and then all of ranks didn't matter anymore. In fact, they were a hindrance. So he ditched as much of that as he could and revolutioned it up. But he would still felt strange when they killed the king and queen, because that is his peer group, way above in his peer group, but it's still a peer group. And the moment it came up, he put himself in the spot of king. They decided not to call it king, but emperor instead, because it's uncomfortable and all that. So, but yeah, the moment he get a chance to make a government, he makes a monarchy again. So he was like a monarchist. So you can, it's all in history. All you have to do is just pick it up and stick it in a movie. Mm-hmm. You could do the story of Napoleon the monarchist. You could do the story of Battle of Borodino and hang up everything on that. You could do just the story of Josephine, and hang it up all on that. He could all of those things. Movie doesn't do any of these things, and that's the failing. And the Gucci film had a similar failing, so I think that is a Ridley Scott failing. He didn't. In the Gucci film, I was complaining, pick a lane, any lane. And here I think he didn't even get on the highway.
Yeah.
He didn't even bother to go onto the highway, so there's no lane picking at all. And that's my opinion. And I'm going to get myself some more blood.